Yep. We're live. It's week 2 of the finals in the AFL Hunter Central Coast. We've got one more week to go, and this week we get to find out who's going to the big dance right across the competitions in the AFL HCC Black Diamond. I've got my trusty Burley footy. I don't know why nobody likes them over here, but I love them. And I've got my 3 best mates here to talk about footy. There is so much going on with what happened last week, what might happen this week, what's happening off the field, who's playing well, who's out of the competition, and who's going to the big dance. I'm as excited about this chat, boys, as I have been about calling the games in recent weeks. How are you guys? As pumped as me?
Yeah, sure are, Corey. What it gets to this time of year, and I don't know, we saw some good football on the weekend, and we got some good football coming up tomorrow, and then, 8 days' time, we're going to be sitting there watching a 4 grand final, so pretty exciting times.
Yeah, 8 days, 4 grand finals. That's great. So one less grand final than what we had last year, of course, but I don't think we're at a loss for that. I think it's a good full day with 4 games, and I'm certainly got not much left in the trumpet by the end of it. That's for sure, especially after last week.
Oh yeah, there was some good games last week, and we were really thoroughly entertained. And unfortunately, we had to see some sides depart the competition. But this week's there's going to be 4 great games on at Maitland, and I'm sure there'll be 4 terrific games at Don Small as well.
That's right. We've got a slimmer pickings in the field now. We've with quite a few eliminations, which we'll go through one by one. Eddie Baldwin, how was the flag waving last week, mate? Was it a highlight finals day in your long and illustrious career?
One of the best jobs, to say the least. I couldn't believe the start that Terrigal got out the blocks with 5 goals to nothing. Even if I think it was 8 goals to nothing at half time, I thought this is going to be a one-sided. I thought I was going to have a very boring second half. And then Warners Bay, as you guys put it out, 6 goals to 1.
Yes.
Wow.
Big day. It was a great final in so many contexts. We'll obviously cover that a little bit later on. But Andy, we've got to scrutinise you over a couple of ones through the day too, mate. There was a couple of iffy ones that could have gone either way. But we're going to get the real inside mail on some of those ones. There were some real close ones you had to call on the day, wasn't there?
Yeah, I look forward to you guys scrutinising me. That's for sure. Shame I won't be up to you guys up at Max McMahon, but I'm going to be there at Don Small all day tomorrow, so I'll be from there from 8:30 till the wee hours of 4:30 in the afternoon, and then keeping an eye on you guys up at Max McMahon.
Very good. Well, mate, we want you to give us plenty of correspondence from Don Small, because obviously the mighty Wyong Lakes Magpies, who are a resurgent club at the moment in both men's and women's grade. Well, Four-Quarter Chop's got his eye well and truly on the Wyong Lakes Magpies to maybe be the ones to take that spot in the Black Diamond Cup competition next year. So I want to know all the ins and outs. And then if you see anyone important out there, mate, tell them to give me a call. It'll be good to have a chat with somebody at Wyong Lakes and hear how things are going. Simon Smythe, if you're out there, let's have a chin wag, mate. We're old buddies.
I look forward to some more controversy from you this week, Chop. Talk about teams going up. I'm waiting for that internet to drop out, because last week we had all sorts of trouble. Whenever you mention anything slightly controversial, the internet disappeared. I don't know what's happening there at AFL House. They must be monitoring the chat and keeping a bit of a grip on us, mate.
100%. I've got black words around here now. Every time I say washout, buy round, Central Coast Council, like my lights go like this. I hear a little static electricity go like that. So I'm going to be really watching myself.
Well, it was certainly a good week last week, boys, and I think we should jump right into it, I suppose, shouldn't we?
Yeah,
We'll start off with where we started last week, which was a women's play. We obviously saw Killarney Vale versus Port Stephens. In that game, it was a pretty one-sided game, 5-7-37, Killarney Vale getting over the line. They came in as the lower-ranked team, but they did the job on Port Stephens, and I think they really showed how that depth of having a senior grade and then the second grade, it really flows through, especially in finals. They were just a little bit more polished than Port Stephens, who were they battled away all day, but they didn't quite get there, did they, Chop?
No, not at all. We haven't seen, or I personally haven't seen, I don't think any plate women's games all year. So that was the first one for me. And there was talk that Port Stephens were the more fancy side in out of the two, but what I saw was a difference between two clubs, where one club is emerging just with seniors, and the other one has an established senior women's program that has a flow-on effect, especially at finals time. So they might not have finished high on the ladder, the Kalani Vale Bombers, but they were playing at home. Their big sisters are having the week off to do their finals campaign next week. So they came out just raring, looking like they were dead set going to win this right from the start. And I just think it looked like Port Stephens is a club that haven't quite worked that out or gotten to that level of development. And, mate, when you got like 35 flacks running around out there, you're going to do all right. So there was more flacks. I was going to say something about couldn't give a flack, but they did give a flack. There were flacks everywhere.
Yeah, pretty handy too. They were, weren't they? It was good. Ashley, what did you think of the game?
Yeah, look, I was turning up to Adelaide Street expecting Port Stephens to do the job, given the season they had, but the Flacks seemed to do the business for them, and I really loved the game of Kira Alvicio. She was tough as nails, as exemplified by a hit towards the end of the last quarter that really, really took the sting out of the Power. And I think the Power would be disappointed with the outcome, but I think they'd be proud of the season. It's 2 years in a row now they've made finals in the Black Diamond Women's Plate, and I look to build from that. I really liked Mazziero's game too. Mazziero from the Power was pretty good, as well as Kidd. And they've got some players there that can play a role, and I think they'll be back when the whips are cracking in 25, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we want to see for them, those emerging clubs, don't we? They might be going solo in a lower grade at the moment, but if they keep working and developing in these final series and eventually maybe get one, then who knows, they can maybe push up into the cup before too long.
Yeah, indeed. And over at Passage Road, there was the 3 versus 6. I'm just trying to get my numbers right. 3, we saw Cardiff comfortably account for what I suppose were the home side, even though they were 6th-ranked lower side. Entrance Bateau Bay, so it was 6-11-47 to no score there. So a comfortable win to Cardiff, who'll progress through to play tomorrow as well. We'll talk about that shortly.
Refresh my memory. Which side was the side that got into finals by the most underwhelming home and away results I've ever heard?
The Entrance Bateau Bay won 2 games for the year.
That's right, they did too.
Yeah,
very
so
good.
they were probably beaten by like a side that had only won 2 games for the year, also not scoring and being beaten by 45. So, but you know what? They had a top 6. They got in it. You'd be happy with that.
Well, right now they think premierships grow on trees, because finals berths are pretty easy to come by. Sorry, that's my cold, my flu. I did work myself to exhaustion last Saturday. Ash, how did you feel? And Shane, how did you feel at the end of the call?
Well, I've had a pretty big week. I've had just a change of work environment for next year, and I reckon that's all of those things. That I was a bit fluey before that, and I spent Thursday in bed. To be perfectly honest, I was not good, and even today I've started to come good throughout the day. So hopefully the voice holds up and we can get through 4 games of footy.
Did you get the anchor job on KO Sports?
Oh, I wish. No, mate, just Thursday in bed, mate. I was lucky enough to host the junior presentation night on Wednesday night at the AFL Hunter Central Coast, the Belmont 16-footer. Gee, it was
the merged
talented footballers. First time they merged it. Gee, there's some talented footballers running around junior footy. The under-17 boys medal was won by a young fella that's been playing in AFL Sydney in the under-19s competition for Manly Warringah, Lachlan Gillies, and runner-up was Cardiff's own Tahi Brain. So, that's a great jewel. And then the under-17s medal was won by, goodness, now I announced a name too. My goodness, where's the blank? The blanks just come out. just as I was about to do it. But I can tell you, Savannah Newton and Bonnie Swan were in the top 3. And
Not surprised.
Yeah, AFL, Hunter Central Coast.
Cardiff they're an absolute talent factory at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, they've been good. I've just got to work my way back into what the name was now. I can't believe I've forgotten. Rara. She's a player from Maitland called Aurelia Russell. They call her Rara. She's one of the smallest footballers you'll ever see, but she's so good. And,
related to the other Russells?
Juniors.
Any relation to the other
Yeah,
Russells?
it is. Brother, sister to Abe Russell and Xavier Russell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Aurelia was fantastic. I'm sorry, I forgot the name then. I remember doing that. Matty Marsh's brother won a best and fairest in the under-13s. Jake Marsh for Port Stephens. Yeah, some really good talents running around our junior game at either brother or sisters. Got all Australians winning best and fairest in our comp. Future's very bright in our system, that's for sure.
And let's not forget one of the commentary team's own too, Ollie Croft, walking away with a Young Umpire Award too. So congrats, Ollie.
Yeah, it was a great privilege calling his name out. The Golden Whistle for 2024 for the men, for the young men. So it's hard to win a Golden Whistle. So it's they used to be
again now.
Well, the tradition. Yeah, the tradition with the Golden Whistle is you only used to ever win one of them in your life. So I don't know how that's still the same. But when I got it in 1994, which is a long time ago now, you could never win it twice.
You don't want to peak too early, do you?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Is it all? Are you saying it's all downhill for Ollie now?
Well, let's just hope his career takes off from it.
Well, mate, you can always go for a golden microphone. That's out on the cards, isn't it?
Well, that's true too. And speaking of umpires, AFLW kicks off this weekend too. So we've probably got Zali Merton running around down there too. So there is certainly a pathway for young umpires, and we seem to breed them pretty well up here too, don't we? So
she's at Manuka Oval on Saturday, and former NCCA umpire Joseph O'Brien's umpiring Williamstown versus Williamstown at the Whitten Oval in the VFL semi-finals on the weekend. He'll be the first umpire in our region to ever do that. So it's a sensational effort. And then you got Tom Sullivan, who's in AFL. So we've got some good guys that run around that have come from Newcastle Central Coast. So there's a real pathway now, and it's great. I think it's terrific.
Yeah, we're setting a standard, aren't we?
Speaking of young blokes running around, we saw the men's plate games on the weekend too. We obviously covered the Marlins versus Lake Macquarie. This was billed as a bit of a grudge match. There was some controversy about the finals going in and whether there was maybe some wet ground play being manipulated by one of the teams. We thought it was going to be a fairly feisty, fiery competition. It didn't end up being as hard as what we thought. I think I was maybe expecting a little bit more rough stuff, but it ended up being a fairly comfortable win, albeit sort of towards the end of the game, 12-15-87 to 4-6-30 with Lake Macquarie. Perhaps for this one, Chop, talk us through what you thought of the game.
Yeah, it was a little saccharine in the end, wasn't it? But the good news is, right here, right now, the commentary box, it's not. I guess it's not exclusively ours, so we've got to mind our P's and Q's with certain things, which we're happy to do. But in here, this is my house. I can say what I want in here.
This is your grill shop, yeah.
Right. And so, for that reason, I am going to speak fairly openly because I thought I was quite critical of what I thought what I'd heard had happened, and of course we don't have any absolute confirmation, but how the Lake Macquarie Football Club was able to make its way into the finals, the last sixth final spot, which looked like it was shored up by the Warners Bay Football Club. So that last game, call on your club. There it goes. I'm about to drop out. So
it's so good, Chop. You're still with us.
I'm still with it. So for the club to make a call on a contentious issue, possibly the most contentious issue in our league at the moment, and that is washout rounds, when we've finally experienced some dry weather at the end of it, and utilise the match ratio discrepancy to be able to just not play the last game and then slip above Warners Bay on the ladder, giving them an extra week to play. So they didn't play the last round so they could play one more round in the finals. Denied Warners Bay a chance to play in the finals, which they should have, especially with their first grade side doing so well. And then, of course, Nelson Bay had a chance to win the minor premiership. So I've got to say, from all of my investigations, that's how it worked out. I found that to be one of the most unsportsmanlike decisions a football club has collectively made in favour of a very self-appointed, self-driven kind of outcome. I didn't think that was a great thing at all. And I actually went in there. I've never done it before, but I had a little bit of bias going into the commentary, I have to say. Thankfully, I don't think Nelson Bay performed in a way that was remarkably worthy of winning that favouritism. So it became a very bipartisan call for me in the end anyway. In fact, there was a couple of players in the Lake Macquarie Dockers, not the whole team, but there were a few players. I thought they played admirably, actually. I thought they played much better than what I was expecting, but they were beaten comfortably in the end. But that game did not look like two teams trying to stay alive and keep their finals series alive. Like Lake Macquarie looked like it the most, and their fullback, I think his name is Seidel. I thought he was brilliant. Seidel and the captain Tyler Chisholm. I'd like to see them in Black Diamond Cup very soon. I think. That's my piece. I'm out. Who else wants to have a go?
Where's Shane gone? Goodness, he's the man that keeps it all together. That's
You know what?
rare.
Do you know what? The powers just kidnapped him, and they are going to blackmail me to stop talking about controversial things. Don't worry, Shane. I won't pay too little. I'll pay whatever the ransom is.
I'll see how we go, mate. I'll give it. I can't agree with you anymore, man. Like if it was exactly as it was rumored, it's not great form. I won't say any more about it because I generally try to be Switzerland when I can. But look, Lake Macquarie got in the finals. They gave themselves a pretty good account of themselves for 3 quarters in a very underwhelming game, really. I was really looking forward to seeing what Nelson Bay could do, and they were pretty underwhelming, to be perfectly honest, fellas. I thought they lacked spark in the midfield. They lacked accuracy in their kicking. And to be honest, if it wasn't for Jaden Reimer in the first quarter or so, and a couple of their other forwards, they probably would have been behind, I'd say. Jaden Reimer was just that class above. I really liked Nick Ellis-Brody for Nelson Bay, and I loved Grinier. Grinier's a great player. And
Grinier was very good.
Well.
He looked injured, didn't he, Reimer? He looked like he might have been nursing some injured calves or...
I think towards the end he looked a bit down. Yeah, couldn't agree with you more about Lake Macquarie's side, though. Seidel's a good player. I liked him at fullback. Really enjoyed Tyler Chisholm. He always gives 110%. And, there was also Dean Notman, too, who kicked 3 goals. I thought he was very serviceable for
that's right. He was a very unassuming key forward, wasn't he, fellas? I thought, Notman, but he seemed to strike it neatly. He had a slightly unusual kicking technique, but it was effective. There was a handful of players in that Lake Macquarie side that kind of won me over a little bit through the course of it, and probably what I felt was a bit of a lackluster performance by Nelson Bay. I just didn't understand why Nelson Bay just didn't come out and ravage Lake Macquarie. They looked like they're a side that they could have. I coached against Nelson Bay on 2 occasions last year, and a lot of those players are still there. And they were young then, and they're still young now. But I don't think they should have gone back to second grade, to be honest. So I was hoping to see this ballistic football side that just is sweeping everyone in front of them, and is going to push its way and be the saviour of Black Diamond Cup by being that 8th team. But mate, all my eggs are in the Magpies basket now because they didn't impress me the way that I was hoping to be impressed at Nelson Bay. But maybe they were just having an off day. Maybe they're just making sure they get through to the next round of finals. I don't know. But if they get into a grand final, I want to see a far more spirited performance than that. Because if they're going to just coast into the grand final and deny other genuine plate teams that chance, and they're just going to coast through, then that's disappointing for the competition, I think.
Well, you don't win the premiership though in week 1 of the finals drop. Maybe they're
Correct.
saving themselves.
True.
Yeah, there'll be room for growth for them.
I'm the first one to admit I do watch those sides with a little more scrutiny than most, and probably than even that I should. And when I do see them achieve and perform and hit the targets and do the right thing right across the league, I'm the first one to herald them as well. So they'll get every bit of my support. The jury's just a bit out with a couple of those clubs, I think, that might have taken a slightly easier road.
Yeah,
And
they
Chop,
really
if
only
you
won
wanna
the
know
third quarter. Sorry, mate.
Oh, sorry, Ash. I was going to say, if you want to
And
know a
I was
conspiracy
gonna say-
theory,
Yeah.
I dropped offline there just very briefly. I lost my complete internet.
He's gone again.
Gone
I'm
again.
telling you, this is what they do. They're going to
Something's wrong. Something's wrong. I'll tell you, well, I was just going to say, look, it was, you expect more from a side like Nelson Bay. But look, this week they get the opportunity to come back. They've got the chance to play Newcastle City, and they can knock Newcastle City out. It sets up a potential big gun match against Wyong, who I know for certain their goal next year is to get 2 teams on the park for men. So if they're going to look at 2 sides in a park, one of them's going to be a cup team, surely.
Well, I'll say this for Wyong, as well to all the Central Coast clubs right now. If they want to work and canvass our local region, there are many, many players of first grade and second grade standard out there that you can recruit that will be interested in coming back to football. They might be away from it at the moment. That all of those clubs will be able to facilitate two sides comfortably on the Central Coast. They've just got to put the work in and go and find them. So it's as simple as that.
Yep.
Don't expect them just to come to you. Go out and find them.
Go and recruit them. Go and get them.
Absolutely.
And
Otherwise, rats.
Yeah, that's it. And Cardiff did the business over Terrigal Avoca in the other game, fellas. So sets up a really good clash between Wyong and Cardiff. Might talk about that one later on. You reckon, fellas? We move on to the women.
Yep. Agreed. And sorry, everyone. I am back now. I hope. Apologies there. Small internet. I swear that maybe the curse of Chop, it's growing its way around, and maybe it's
affecting internet.
Is it really you, Shane? Is it really you, or have you been body snatched?
Yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah.
I know they do that.
Maybe they've worked out that if they put like an attack on you, they only cut off one of the mics. But if they take down me, maybe they take down the whole stream. But
correct.
The might of StreamYard has us going strong.
You're the key. I'm just the bollard. You're
the listen in. Moving to the Women's Cup, we saw the second elimination final, which was 4th versus 5th, in between Sigurd and Roosters versus Terrigal Avoca. It ended up being a little bit one-sided. Terrigal Avoca getting the chocolates there, 7-4, 46 to 2-3, 15. And boys, another example of the team with a cup side. Oh, sorry, no, it's not. They are a cup side. I was about to say the team with 2 sides, I suppose, having that depth and getting over the line there. It felt like in that one.
Yeah, look, for mine, it was the best game of the day. For mine, that women's game was the best game of the day. It was the most competitive game of the day. Corey said it on numerous occasions. The 2 sides played a disciplined, structured game for the entire match. They didn't relent from the structure, and the only time that Terrigal really broke apart from Singleton is when they were trying to win the game towards the end, and Terrigal kicked away in the end. But credit to both sides. They played a tough game of football. And for mine, that match on Saturday was the pick of the 4 games we covered on Bar TV. Congratulations to both Singleton and Terrigal. And at the same time, commiserations to Singleton for missing out. There's 2 girls I wanted to sort of give a shout out to. I don't know if they'd be watching this, but to Layla and Emily, hope you girls are all right, because they copped some pretty big hits, and I know one of them ended up in surgery the other day. So best of luck for them for their recovery, and hopefully they're back for footy in 2025. But for Terrigal, they roll on and they get a shot at Cardiff this week. And fellas, that sets up a really good clash, because whichever side wins out of Cardiff and Terrigal will make their first ever Black Diamond Women's Cup Grand Final in history. So it's a great effort for either of them.
Yeah, absolutely. It was 2 sides that knew their capabilities. It meant something to them right from the start to be in that final, and they did all that they could with the personnel and the capacity that they had to put their best foot forward and try and get that win. And I think it was, as was with the men's game, which went slightly different, it was probably a case of experience, and it was very honest with the difference in the scoreline in the end. I watched a little bit of I've been watching club's social media stuff quite closely right throughout the year, and I saw that Terrigal really knuckled down and sort of adopted a bit of a serious mindset in terms of what they wanted to do. They almost themed their finals series, which I thought was really good. You know, they sort of talked about buying their ticket into finals, and I thought that was really good. You could see that come through in the way that they approached the game. So that probably was Terrigal's best game for the year, and certainly the best one that I've seen played. That was the first game I saw from Singleton, and I'm really impressed with a few of the girls that played there. There's no doubt that those two sides are going to constantly improve and will come out of that emerging club, shadow, I guess, in no time at all. Two great men leading those two particular clubs, and both had very good justification to get their girls through the next round. There's no doubt about that. But they should be extremely proud of what was achieved. And yeah, definitely from 4 quarters of real finals, that was the best example of a finals game for me. Terrigal, however, they're going to have a bit of a tough time going to this week because they've lost a couple of their better performers, I believe, with some citations that happened, which is very, very disappointing for them because I think if they were going on that trajectory, but those losses are going to be a little too hard to cover, I think.
Yeah. And Chop, you sound like your voice is heading the same way as Ashley's. I'm getting nervous now for you boys for tomorrow.
Mate, I drove from Killarney Vale to home. I was on an absolute high. Andy Baldwin, of course, brought a selection of delectable Krispy Kreme donuts, which we polished off in no time. I was on an absolute high, but by the time I jumped in my car, from Killarney Vale, Adelaide Street to Kincumber, I just went like, and I fell asleep in my car in the driveway. I was so cruel. Unbelievable.
There you go. Over at Baddo Bay, it was a very one-sided game over there. Of course, third placed Newcastle City taking on sixth place, the entrance Baddo Bay. We've talked all year about the top 3 teams being in a different league to the others, and that turned out to be the case. It was a big win, 23 goals, 8-146 to no score. So big win there to Newcastle City. We've talked about Terrigal Avoca and the year they've had. It is, it's been a credit to them to put that team up for their first year, getting the wins they did, which was fantastic, but just not good enough against Newcastle City.
No, and look, shout out to Ayla Flynn, a 17-year-old girl, kicked 8 goals on Saturday for Newcastle City. That's a massive effort from the junior.
2 bags.
And Kate Hanley got 5 for the City girls. So that's tremendous going into a preliminary final this week against Killarney Vale, and Newcastle City looking to extend their streak as the one side that's played in every grand final in the Black Diamond Women's Cup. It's an amazing performance, and you wouldn't put it against them to do it again on Saturday.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm not commenting on that.
Nothing.
All I want to say is well done to the entrance Baddo Bay Footy Club. I've said it once before. I'll say it again. I'm really hoping that I get an invite to their presentation evening this year. So I'm just putting that out there. If anyone hears that at the entrance Baddo Bay. But if I don't get that invite, congratulations on a great season, particularly the girls. This isn't a Baddo Bay shirt, of course. This is a Saratoga Hawks, but it's more so to represent the Brisbane Water Lions, which is a little venture close to my heart that we come up with last season. That's carried on, and the under-17s girls, they played some finals this year. It was their first year under the Brisbane Water Lions banner, and a lot of those girls are from the entrance Batto Bay and play senior footy. So I just want to send a little cheerio out to those girls. I'm very fond of that group there, and the men's group as well. So well done on a great season. We know where Newcastle's at, so I don't need to analyse that game. I think the entrance Batto Bay will be back. They'll improve for it. I can't wait to watch Newcastle come out against these top two sides. So.
Yeah, which brings us to the final game we broadcast last week, which was, of course, Terrigal Avoca versus Warners Bay. That was the third versus fourth elimination final. I know, Chop, you're pretty keen to get some pressure on Andy about some of his goal calling. He's been sitting there very quiet, but this is the time when we get to put him on the grill. The final result ended up going the way of Terrigal Avoca. It was 10-9-69 against Warners Bay 7-8-50. Before we get to your thoughts, Chop, Ash, talk us through the first half, because it was a relatively close 19-point final margin, but it wasn't that way at halftime, was it?
No, it wasn't. Terrigal got out of the blocks, didn't they? And they kicked a goal, a couple of early ones there through Jake Hansen and Ethan Williams. Toby Burns put one through from about 40 metres out to put them 18 points in front. Lawton and Ethan Williams put them 32 points in front at quarter time. And they just continued with the flow, didn't they? They just gave nothing to Warners Bay. They absolutely swarmed them at every opportunity. And, they just absolutely destroyed them. Jake Hansen and Billings could put a brilliant goal through off a scurry. And then the double Cobras came out just before half-time with Luke Bury and our man Chop with his double Cobras. And they were 49 points up at half-time. And I reckon at that point, you could have put any money on Terrigal to win it, and you could have offered any odds for Warners Bay, and no one would take them, because at 49 points down against one of the best sides in the AFL Hunter Central Coast history, you were never going to stop them. But what transpired after halftime was something very, very special from Warners Bay, and in the end, they could hold their head up very high.
Chop, talk us through the second half, because that was a different game, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll probably be a little controversial with you won't believe it, but I might be a little controversial with my viewpoints on this. I tipped Warners Bay because I felt that Warners Bay were going to be a better side, a stronger side, and more physical, and it was always going to come down to how quickly Warners Bay adjusted to the way they're playing football this year, not the way that they played a couple of seasons ago, and that they played the team that was playing right in front of them, not the reputation of the team that was there to play against them. And unfortunately, that first half with 8 unanswered goals, take nothing away from Terrigal Avoca's performance, but they went into their 23rd final since 2014. That's including all the finals years. 10 of those have been grand finals in 10 years, and they won 5 of those grand finals, and that's not including a couple of the years before that. By contrast, Warners Bay were playing their 5th final, and they've only won 1 of those finals beforehand. Incidentally, that one that they won, they played the next week against Terrigal Avoca, who knocked them out convincingly. So you're talking about a David and Goliath difference between their experience. And look, it was almost hard to watch in that first half, because you could. I personally could see it as clear as day. They were reactive to Terrigal, and one thing Chris Bishop is an absolute master at. After all of these years, he's gone through 12 years finals campaigns and dealt with everything from finishing top of the ladder undefeated to finishing a couple of spots down. He knows having a week off in the finals is not always the best thing. And so, therefore, missing that game against Killarney Vale probably worked out better, because they got to play Warners Bay, who were the Greenhorns in finals. The most exciting prospects, in a sense, but the Greenhorns, the ones that Terrigal are wonderful at being able to get over the top of in that mental space, which is so critical. So, and you said it, Ash, 8 goals down at halftime, 49 points against Terrigal Avoca. It should be shut the gate, and I think you were just about ready to do that at one stage. But that's what I felt Warners Bay were all about. They came back. They kicked 5 goals straight in the opening stanza. Did you know they kicked those 5 goals quicker than any of them 5 that Terrigal kicked in the first half?
Yeah, it was an absolute onslaught there at the start of that third. They came thick and fast.
And I said a couple of things we were talking about what they needed to do. And it's I thought they needed Lauritsen in the forward line, who's played back line, who's only kicked 5 or 6 goals all year. Nathan Harkness put him in there. I don't know if he's got a little secret microphone in our commentary box or not. Either way, it was great to see because how good was he? He was probably best on ground for me. And they just were starting to monster Terrigal in the midfield, where Terrigal were all over them with the clearances in the first half. They started to physically dominate Terrigal. And that's where I thought Terrigal were vulnerable. They weren't as big and strong. They're ferocious attackers of the ball and of the ball carrier, but they weren't as big as Warners Bay. And once Warners Bay went, oh, that's right, we play footy like this, and they did it in the second half.
I want to give your throat a quick rest, Corey, because you sound like you're struggling. I also want to hear Andy's thoughts in just a minute too, but I'm going to chuck my controversy hat out there. Warners Bay was slow to start. They had to bye the week before. Here's a stat for you. They'd played 2 games in the previous 5 weeks with bye rounds, this, that, and, of course, the regional round in there. I don't think 2 games is 5 weeks is good enough as a league. If we're going to have a Black Diamond Cup competition at cup level, we need to have every team playing every week. And I don't think that Warners Bay got a fair rub of the green in that thing. And well, not anyone's fault. It is how the season panned out, with obviously playing round 1 in round 17 and all that sort of stuff. But 2 games in 5 weeks, you could see it. They looked like a team that was trying to remember how to play football. And it just feels as though something we can do a lot better there. So as a league, we've got to get that 8th club, because we can't have a bye round. We can't have a team playing 2 games in 5 weeks. It's not fair on them. I don't think it allows them to build them into finals. So that's my controversial step. I'm going to cut over to Andy, because he's been sitting there very patiently. Andy, you got to see this game from one end of the ground, obviously standing in between the sticks there. What do you think of this game?
Well, Shane, I mean, it was interesting to say the least. I mean, I had those first 5 goals from Terrigal in the first quarter. I mean, I was expecting probably this was going to be probably one-sided. I was going to expect 10 goals difference at least. Unfortunately, I mean, I didn't have much in that second quarter. But then I just couldn't believe the way that Warners Bay just came out of the blocks that in the first 12 minutes. I think they kicked 3 goals. It's really good. And then you see that Terrigal got a goal. I mean, they got it back out to 5 goals difference. And then Warners Bay again. 3 goals in the last 8 minutes. Fantastic. I thought it was going to be a grandstand finish. It felt like, I don't know whether there was a game between Nelson Bay and Newcastle City nearly 6 years ago. I was expecting that would have been the upset of the year. Well, the upset of the century.
Yeah, I remember that one.
You remember that one? It was Nelson Bay, I think. Nelson Bay won by a point.
Nelson Bay, wasn't it? Nelson Bay?
Nelson Bay won by a point because, I mean, Terrigal couldn't kick straight.
Yeah.
I mean, but that day, I mean, Newcastle City had a former Adelaide Crow by the name of Nicholas Gill. And they just couldn't kick straight.
You know what's interesting, Andy? The Nelson Bay Footy Club, who aren't in first grade at the moment, have played more finals than Warners Bay in that 2014 to period now. And look, in all honesty, if Warners Bay had got their roll on 1 quarter earlier, if they had just had a quiet first quarter and then started playing, they would have beaten Terrigal, because Chris Bishop is fantastic at preparing his football side exactly how they need to be, and he gets the best out of his side every year at finals, because he knows not only how to work his side, he knows how to work the opposition side. He's perfect at it, and that's what they were able to do. Warners Bay didn't beat Terrigal during the year, and it sits on a fresh team's psyche. But Terrigal know that, and they know how to capitalise on it, and that experience was just monumental in the end. Once they found the belief, they really started to apply it. But by then, they're dealing with time and exhaustion and pressure. So
Yeah. Now, Ash, during I think it was that first quarter, you called what you thought was a ball that hit the post. Our man waving the big sticks gave it the goal, though. I know you've rewatched the game, Ash. Do you think Andy got that one right?
Mate, after I watched it on replay, I thought, goodness, that was. I don't know if I'd seen another ball behind the stick or something like that, but gee, it looked like it hit the post on first look. But our big champion Andy, he didn't miss a trick. It was actually a really nice soccer off the deck in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was indeed. Yeah,
it was
You're
great.
a picture of concentration, that's for sure, Andy.
Guys,
I've
Andy, over to
been
you.
poisoned. I've been poisoned.
Just to tell you the truth, guys, I had to manually push. I mean, that's why I was doing like this. I was trying to get Isaac's attention. I mean, he was not sure either. Quite literally, and Isaac Cruikshank was blindsided. He could not see what actually happened. I mean, I was straddling that line, and I saw what I saw. I mean, what you saw probably that hit the post was the defender.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. It went quick. But that's fair play to you, big guy. You got it spot on, mate. So that's great.
You did very well there, Andy. Now,
what about some performances?
Well, we got some performances, and we got some performances out of the commentary box too. I want to share this little piece of footage because I think, Chop, this could be some of your best commentary of the year. Let's have a look at this little piece of commentary. If I can get it to play. There we go.
Goes to the line. Gibbons. Gee, I'm surprised by that kick from Bury.
Yeah,
that was just a caress rather than a kick.
A bit of a pressure kick. I mean, he didn't even open up the sack for the Cobras then, did he? Let alone pull the flute out. So, and look at Warners Bay. They've responded in scintillating fashion, coast to coast. They're already back down in their offensive zone. Mark, kick.
25 seconds to go, boys.
They're like AI out there. They're learning at the same rate. Unbelievable!
Well, it was a great goal. But what I did love was the flute, the sack, the Cobras, mate. You had it all. I thought that was
a bit of everything going on there, wasn't there? Yeah, no. Well, I often think of those Cobras as Luke Bury's a bit of a snake charmer he's got to sort of gently caress those Cobras out and make it happen. But he's not the only snake on the side now. He's got Jake the snake, and I reckon we might have another one there in Mitch Python. I'm going to call him Mitch the Diamond Python on the weekend.
Yeah, yep.
So.
Well, listen, we are running short of time, but there is just one last bit I did want to share from that game that we saw on the weekend, and that was this little bit of footage. Oh no, it's going to make a liar of me. I'm trying to get this bloody sharing system to work. That's always the way, isn't it? Hold on 1 second.
Don't even stress, mate. This is actually smooth sailing than what I do.
This is theoretically it here now. He says, hopefully. That was
the same as
the end of the game.
That was the same as the one in the pocket here in the third term. But a great performance. Terrigal, look, they set it up in the first half. Chris Bishop, I don't know if he'll be overly worried about the second half. I think it'd be a bit of concern, but
that's where I wanted to freeze there, boys. That was the siren. That was a team that had just won their way through an elimination final in Terrigal Avoca against a team that had just lost the elimination final, and both teams looked absolutely spent. There wasn't really any signs of joy from the Panthers, and the Bulldogs looked like they'd just thrown everything at it in the second half, which of course they had. I just thought it was a real interesting. You get through an elimination final. There's normally a little bit of something from the winning team or whatever. Both these teams were out on their feet at the end of that game.
Shane, that is an amazing skill that you've collected there, and I reckon there's more in that, in the body language, than what most people would even realise. Because you're dead right. We've got two sides there. One of the disappointment of Warners Bay, because they know they could have beaten Terrigal Avoca, but they only played half a game of football. They forgot what they do for the first half. And Terrigal Avoca know that they just got away with that. And, there was good tactics in psychological attrition or whatever else to be able to get that big lead at the beginning. So So that might be a bit of nerves there going into the final this week. If Cardiff does their homework, they might be able to work with those chinks in the armour.
Yeah, and listen, we will move on in a second, but congratulations to the Warners Bay Bulldogs. What a year. I mean, geez, they've sort of come from that 6th position last year up into 4th, but it's not just a jump of 2 positions. They were good enough that they could have been a top 2 or top 1 side. Nathan Harkness and the team, gee whiz, they've done a brilliant job down there, haven't they, Ash?
Yeah, look, and I saw something today actually that's really caught my eye because
yes, bring it up.
I noted on one of the channels that I normally frequent on Facebook that Warners Bay are advertising for a new coach next year. I just can't believe it. Like, what more did I just don't understand. I'm flabbergasted. I really hope they just look at Nathan Harkness's resume, what he's done this year, and understand that they've got a real diamond in Nathan, because he really has worked with it.
This post was from today and it wasn't from April 1st, Ash, because I
honestly just can't. I'm flabbergasted. I don't know. I don't have much more to say other than sign him up, fellas. I don't know. We said it. We just said it in the fact that last week because he was doing so well and where he got them to at the end of the year, like they didn't even look like making finals last year, or they were pretty close, but they just weren't there. But this year they were within a whisker of finishing top 2 and getting a double chance.
Yeah,
I don't understand. Maybe they're just trying to test the waters. I don't know, but good luck to them if they can find someone better in this region than Nathan. That's for sure.
But I saw that this morning. It come up on my feed, and I don't understand. Not only do I not understand, I find it's a very bizarre thing to do at probably the worst possible time to a club that is that's the least thing that they need right now. I hope they know what they're doing, whoever has pulled the trigger on this, because it looks like a great dynamic from everywhere looking inside. Nathan Harkness has got his first grade senior men right behind him, and we could see the way he was able to get them to gallantly get up and turn their game around, which not everybody would have been able to do, to get 49 points back to the best side against the best side in finals. But to do that, I can't tell what's going on internally at the club, but if they're not willing to extend his contract or sign him up again before they need to advertise for somebody else, whether it's true or not, that says to me that something isn't someone's not happy with a dynamic there, because if he's out of contract, wouldn't you just immediately sign him up so that the playing group know that there's cohesion, the board's behind the coach who just brought them great success, and nobody has to walk around going, oh, what's going wrong? I mean, you already saw some questions come up and say, yeah, what's happening there? What is Nath aware of this? I don't know. I don't know why you don't snap up. It's hard enough finding a good coach in local footy as it is, but when you've got one right there, a board and a committee should be bending over backwards to make sure they secure that and keep everything working together. And I can speak from great authority about being in situations where committees have made questionable decisions that don't think about the playing group and the membership overall well enough, and can create really big divides. I hope whatever's happening internally there is smooth and kosher, and this isn't anything other than, I don't know, some kind of protocol they're trying to stick close to.
Yeah, I can only hope maybe it's in their club constitution that by constitutional they have to advertise a position or something, because on paper that looks bizarre to me.
Mate, it looks like they want to interview people to come in, but you've got a first-class senior coach who just did everything you want a senior coach to do. The players love him. He's brought players in. You don't want to unsettle that dynamic at all.
That's it. And I know he was I'm pretty sure Nath was responsible for bringing the big dig down to the comp. So,
and he's so that dig is so critical to that makeup. You just don't want to rock that apple cart. It's simple as this, isn't it? Simple as this. Hey, coach, you happy with the job? You happy here? Yeah, I am. Do you want to go again? Yeah. well, we're wrapped with the result, so let's just make it. Let's set it in stone. You don't need to go and tell
maybe
everyone.
you're right,
We're
mate.
going to look
I
for
don't
someone
know,
else.
bro.
There might be someone better out there.
That's right. And Magpies just put up there, maybe it's the coach's decision, which is a good point too. Maybe it's not.
Yeah, maybe
it's
we
not
just
the
don't. We
committee.
don't know, mate. That's just what it
I'm
is.
sure.
But you'd think they'd sign him. I don't know.
Yeah, yep.
Anyhow.
Well, I
We'll see
don't
what
think our coach
transpires,
happy in his
fellas.
role is going to ask them to advertise for somebody else to do it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's it.
my final comments before we look ahead. The Big D, we just talked about him, was in a moon boot on last Tuesday. It didn't look like it. I didn't know this prior to the game. I only found out afterwards. It didn't look like he was moving particularly well. But still, in that last half, he lifted and
tried his guts out.
Lifted the side of his shoulders. Great guy, and obviously if he's carrying an injury, it's a bit of a shame for the team there, and probably explains a little bit of a slow start as well when you need your key guys to kick off well.
Best recruit of the year, fellas. Love him.
Yeah.
Love what he does. Love what he represents. Love the way he goes about footy, and I love how he brings his teammates together when they need it. And he steps up for them. He's just been the
100%.
recruit of the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is he the best recruit behind the
been blessed with outside players coming in this year, and Dig's one of the best. I just want to say quickly, I thought Dig was one of the best for Warners Bay. I thought best on ground, marginally over the second best was Zach Lawrence, and he was the one genuine Bulldog who played 4 quarters, and far out, what an excitement machine. He helped to swing everything around. Corey Deverell was fantastic. I thought that was one of the best games I've seen him play too. And there was another player.
Joe Harrison.
Yeah, the 2 young boys were fantastic. So, I've got this write-up that will come out probably middle of the year about that game, but it's a fun. They were like Dungeons and Dragons characters. Those him and Caden McNamara for Terrigal, Lachlan McNamara, Lachlan White.
Caden, Lockie, yeah.
He's not a wizard anymore. He's a warlock because he's a melee specialist. And in Dungeons and Dragons, he gets a +6 experience points because he's a melee a melee. What do you call it? Warlock. Anyway,
you're going over my head here, Chop. But anyway,
I know. I'll explain it in my post. He was fantastic. Caden McNamara was tremendous. Jake Henson saved the day, I thought. Jake the Snake with his how many goals did he end up with, Ash? Do you remember?
I think he got 3 in the end, but that goal he kicked after all those goals they kicked in a row basically killed the game off because they were coming home, and then
that was a good goal to stem the flow. So he's finished really strong, Jake Hansen. He's a star of the future. Ethan Williams was just a gun all game.
There you go.
And also Jack Grimmonley. I hope Jack Grimmonley is right up there in the Elliot Davey medal voting this year.
You'd think so. I mean, he's a great player, but I think having a distinctive haircut helps too. I think that always puts you in front of the umpire's mind. So I think he'll feature up there. Yeah. We haven't even talked about the other game, which was of course the first versus second playoff too. So Cardiff Hawks finishing top of the table up against Newcastle City, who finished second in what was you stamp your ticket through to the GF. Newcastle City ended up stamping that ticket 13,987 to 7,446. A relatively convincing win to Newcastle City, which I think before the game, I thought Cardiff looked like they were going to be pretty good.
Well, they got the first 6 goals in Newcastle City, didn't they? They got the first 6 goals, and they signalled their intention early, and it was a 32-point lead at quarter time to Newcastle City. Cardiff got a couple of goals late, but they bit of a stagnant second quarter. Then Newcastle City took over again, and by 3/4 time, it was a 38-point lead to Newcastle, So that lead sort of held it towards the end. But, look, Newcastle City just too strong. They won by 41 points, and they appeared to do it quite easily. But the benefit of being your minor premier, fellas, is you get a second crack at it. And Cardiff will look to play with a lot more vigour than they obviously did last week. Max King was a big spark for them, kicking 3 goals, and especially after the injury we saw last week, where he was injured in the game against the Entrance Bateau Bay in the first couple of minutes. We thought he might have been out for a few, but he came good, kicked 3 goals. They're definitely going to need him They're definitely going to need him tomorrow against a very solid wall of Birkinshaw. and the Terrigal Avoca defence.
What do you think of this theory, fellas? Because we saw probably the two most experienced sides, especially in finals in the last 12 years. We know how many grand finals both of those two super clubs, and I think it's safe to call them super clubs now. And when I say that, I'm not. There's no negative connotation attached to it whatsoever. Those two clubs have built a level of success and a standard of performance up to such a degree that experience wise, there's no one else that comes close to them in finals. And I feel like that is almost half a game won for those two clubs at the moment. When we see, we've been talking about this being the most even finals campaign that we've seen in a while, and Cardiff Hawks have been wonderful all year. Danny Priest has built his boys up with great momentum. They went in as top of the table, so the minor premiers. They've got a good spread of players. They're very aware of the style of footy that they've got. Newcastle City go into the finals. They haven't been kicking as straight. We know how much firepower they've got, but they've been kicking way more points than they have goals, and almost to the point you think, oh, maybe they're a little shaky. Maybe they kick more points than they kick goals, right? And same with Terrigal, maybe they came in a little bit underneath the radar and they didn't get to play that last game, which you would have thought they would have wanted that top two spot. But maybe it's a bit of smoke and mirrors. There's a little bit of cloak and dagger stuff. They know exactly how to play the game properly to get the best result for themselves, not just in the game, but how the draw's going to work out. Because I don't know if it's true, but for Terrigal to play Warners Bay in that first round is the best result for them, because Warners Bay haven't beat Terrigal all week. They're the greenest, and it's better for Terrigal to play two elimination finals just about than to come up against Newcastle or Cardiff, who have beaten them at some stage through the year with a double chance. Same with Newcastle City. Maybe their forwards were just a little lax leading into the finals to possibly, I know this is a word of yours, Shane, to build a false sense of security, perhaps, knowing full well that when they're all on, they are just an artillery front in the goals, and they just shell-shocked Cardiff, whose game plan wasn't quite ready for.
If I asked you on Saturday morning, Chop, the City will kick 87 points and win by about 40 odd points, how many goals would you have told me Jordan Deere was going to kick?
I reckon I would say he's going to get a bag.
You would think so, but he didn't. But his mate in the long sleeves from a couple of weeks before, the Big Pong, turned it on, didn't he? 5 goals to Pongrasic for, and it's highlighted something we've talked about throughout the year, that Newcastle City have weapons across their forward line. They can score from anywhere. So it did turn out to play there.
Crawford's back in the goal kicking tally as well. They've got firepower. So that's what makes me think, has it strategized a little bit where, all right, this week it's Woody and Creamy's turn to kick a few goals, and this week, Geordie's going to kick a few. And then, Pong, who hasn't really kicked a huge amount, comes out and shows his class as well. And look, I'm not saying anything negative about this. If you've been the most experienced clubs for so long, you're going to learn some very special insight and wisdom as to what works best for you. I know from Terrigal's perspective, I think 2 seasons that they didn't win the premiership, I think they got knocked out. They won the minor premiership, but not the premiership because they lost in straight sets in the finals. Was when one of the years that they had a week off. So they had a one break during the final series. That clearly doesn't work for them. So once again, it lends itself to that theory. They're better off playing all of their games and not having a second chance because they feel confident against Warners Bay. They look good coming up into Cardiff. Cardiff are a little shaky after losing to Newcastle City. It all just seems psychologically to work neatly for those top 2 clubs. If they do have anything to do with that in planning it, well, good on them. That's, I guess, what they pick up with from all the experience they've got. But the other clubs emerging, they have to be aware of that and think like that.
They do. Now, we have just been at an hour, and I know we've got things that we need to move on to. women's Plate Cup. It's Newcastle versus Cardiff and Wyong Lakes Lake Macquarie, the undefeated team against Killarney Vale. Tomorrow, we'll be bringing you the Newcastle City versus Cardiff from Max McMahon. In the men's plate, it is Newcastle City up against the Nelson Bay Marlins. And then once again, the undefeated Wyong Lakes against Cardiff. We'll bring you the City versus Marlins game there, which brings us into the Black Diamond Cup competition. And we have got a couple of, we've got one game that promises to be a real exciting one down at Don Small, which is Killarney Vale versus Newcastle Women's. We'll be covering the other game, though, which is Cardiff Women versus the Terrigal Avoca Panthers. Ashley, your thoughts on that game on paper? You've got 1 versus what was 5 on the end of ladder. Can you see a way out for Terrigal Avoca?
Well, considering Terrigal in 3 games against Cardiff have scored 16 points against them and Cardiff have scored over 150, I'm going to go with no. I'd say Cardiff, just in a short answer, no. I think they played their grand final last week. They played beautifully against Singleton. They earned their victory. They've done well to get to a preliminary final. I think Fairchild will be very happy with the effort, and I think that's as far as they'll go. If they pull off the upset, it'll be their first ever Black Diamond Women's Cup Grand Final. It'll be a magnificent effort. But Cardiff should be just absolutely champing at the bit to get their teeth stuck into the Panthers, and they'll beat them quite comfortably tomorrow in the Black Diamond Women's Cup, and they'll go to their first ever Black Diamond Women's Cup Grand Final. And I think they'll be favourites for it too.
Yep. Andy, what about yourself? Can you see a way out for the Terrigal Avoca Panthers, or is it Cardiff for you also?
Cardiff by about 10 plus goals based on the home and away record this year. And I can see a bag of goals from one of the Cardiff forwards.
Yeah,
there you go.
Maybe the Big Pickle to kick 5. And boys, I just love the fact that we can have a player the caliber of the Big Pickle who, only a few months ago was being called in VFL Grand Finals by some of the best of the business. She's now up here getting called by us 3 lunatics and given a nickname like the Big Pickle. So, anything can happen in football. Chop, what are your thoughts on that Cardiff versus Panthers game?
Yeah, it's impossible, I think, for Terrigal to be able to get up. I hate saying it like that, but they've lost 2 of their best players, I believe, through suspension, which is, in contact that was, I guess, punishable, but there's no malice in it. They were just hard hits that the players got injured. So that's a real shame. I thought, the 2 best players just about in their side in a team that was played really, really well. So I think Ashley said it best, mate, when they played. They saved their best till last. They played their best game last week. They'll put in a noble effort. But the Hawkies, the Hawkettes are just pocket rockets all around the place, and they've got something to prove this year. So I think they'll try and make a bit of a statement tomorrow.
They do. And Ashley, down at Don Small, Ashley, Killarney Vale have faltered a little bit towards the end of the season. They're up against a red-hot Newcastle City who had that big win last week against the entrance Baddo Bay. How do you see that one falling? I mean, we saw Newcastle City get the win in round 1, which was round 17 or 18. I lost track of it. But what do you think about that game, Ash?
Mate, that is the game that if it was on Bar TV, it'd be probably the best game of the day, apart from the Cup. It's going to be a cracking game. Killarney Vale and Newcastle City have had some wonderful battles. They've played in the last 3 grand finals. Unfortunately, one of them's going to miss out this year, and I actually think it's going to be Newcastle City. I think Killarney Vale are going to come up. They're going to rise for the challenge. Newcastle City probably had the easier of the 2 finals in defeating the entrance Baddo Bay last week. Killarney Vale have had a week off, maybe nurse a few injuries, get a few players back and make them hungry. I think Killarney Vale will win it, but it'll be a very, very close contest. Happy to be proven wrong, City girls, and best of luck to both sides. I just think it's going to be such a good game at Wyong. Don Small Oval is definitely one of the places to be this weekend, and it's going to be a massive crowd there. I heard they're predicting one of the biggest crowds in their history, the Wyong faithful. That's going to be great. Look, for mine, Killarney Vale by, I don't know, I can't say more than a goal, maybe 2 goals, but I think they'll get over the line.
There you go. Andy, you're down around that way. How's the tension building? Is there a bit of action down around Wyong tonight? Are you feeling the buzz?
certainly am feeling the buzz here, Shane. I mean, but if you've seen the Wyong Lakes Facebook page and they've got the artwork out there ready to go already. I mean, and the grand finals are not even until Sunday. Mate, I've got the actual waving the flags between that game between Killarney Vale and City. Based on the experience, I mean, I reckon it'll be decided in the last 5 minutes. I reckon City by less than a kick.
There we go. One's one way by less than, one's the other way by less than a kick. Chop, where are you sitting?
Well, a tough one. They've been really close encounters between these two sides. Traditionally low scoring, which is unusual because they've got firepower at both ends. Newcastle and Killarney Vale. Of course, Bubba and Mia Wilson, the top two goal kickers, coming up against Kate Hanley and Ayla Flynn, who kicked 8 last week. So they're in form. So I feel like this might go against the grain. It's going to be a higher scoring affair, but probably equally as close, which is perfect. We want a high scoring game that is nail biter right to the end. Killarney Vale have been a bit out of sorts in the last few weeks. So I don't know if it's the calm before the storm or if something has gone unsettled in the mix there. Because it's been a few weeks. And that worries me because Newcastle had a good run in with all the goal kickers. But I'm going to have faith in our number one goal kicker for the women's, in Crystal Brown. I think she's going to have a absolute bonanza, a bagnanza, and kick a bag or two. And I think she will stare a desperate Killarney Vale Bombers over the line by 2 to 4 points.
There we go. So we've got less than a goal, 2 to 4 points. I'm going to go for a margin of 5. That is 5 goals. Newcastle City to win by 5 goals. There's my tip.
Oh, oh yes. Oh, now I want to change my tip.
No, I'm going to stick with it. But 2 great games.
Yeah, it will be a great game. I just think Killarney Vale have tailed off a little bit towards the end of the year. Injuries to Nikita Carter and stuff don't help them. I think that mixes the balance up a little bit. I think City by a big margin. I know I'm going against the grain of what you guys are saying, but I'm going to put that one out there. So there
you
we
might
go.
be the only grain that gets it, though, mate.
Fair enough.
Boys, I'm gonna love and leave you guys. I've got a big night's sleep. I've got a big day ahead of me tomorrow. Don Small, so have a good call down at Max McMahon. I'm gonna say this is my early prediction for you in Men's Cup. Terrigal by less than a kick, and it'll be less than 60 points each. There you go.
On you, Andy, you know what they say in umpiring, mate. May your balls bounce straight and high tomorrow, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you, boys.
And we better wrap things up here. We've got one last game to review. We better do it quickly, boys. It is, of course, Cardiff, the minor premiers, losing last week, but they had the second chance up against the Terrigal Avoca Panthers, who we've just talked about in their, I was going to say demolition award today. It wasn't a demolition. It was a pretty tight game. It was a demolition in the first half, but it was a pretty close effort in the second half. Chop, I might start with yourself. What's going to happen out there tomorrow?
Well, mate, I haven't picked a Terrigal Avoca game accurately just pretty much all year. They're a hoodoo side for me. Look, I think Danny Priest has got his boys right. If he can play their style of footy, they know they can beat Terrigal. If he gets them playing their style of footy from the first bounce, and not at half time, and they don't get overwhelmed and get the wobbles, because they have a tendency to get the wobbles against Terrigal from time to time, then I think they'll win it comfortably. I think it took a lot out of the Terrigal Avoca side on the weekend, and they knew they became perilously close to getting knocked out of the finals and not making the first grand final in 12 years. I think that their era is coming to an end there at Terrigal. They just keep hanging in there. They get players from clubs that can't hold them there, and they just keep putting it together. And Bish is just a master there. But at some stage, they've got to make way for the emerging clubs to come through. So in a long-winded way, I hate saying it because I do love Terrigal, but I do want to see a different set of banners in those grand finals a little bit these days. So, and I think Danny Priest has done a great job with his boys. I think they'll get up tomorrow.
Well, there you go. The hearts of Cardiff fans around the country have just sunk, because if you're tipping against Terrigal Avoca, it means they're probably going to win, such as your tipping been this year, Chop. You may have just put them off on
but
Cardiff
I
by
usually
picking them.
get everyone else right. So it's going to counteract each other. See, last week I tipped.
You tipped the
Newcastle
Dogs.
City.
Yeah.
Yeah, I picked the Dogs for Terrigal, but I picked Newcastle City against Cardiff, and I got that one right. So don't be distressed. I think Danny knows what he's doing. I think he knows what he has to do to come up against Terrigal. But if they let Terrigal play their game, which is hunt the ball carrier, hunt the ball, and then no one does it better than the Terrigal Avoca Panthers. If you give them space to use the ball, they'll punish Cardiff. But if Cardiff rebound quickly right from the start, they could win.
Ashley, do you agree the Hawks can do it? What do you think?
Well, there's a lot of questions in this game. A lot of questions. One of the big questions I've got is who's gonna take Max King? Is it going to be Birkinshaw? Is it going to be Lee Croft? You know, Caden McNamara. Is he going to start back or is he going to start forward? I love that kid. He's just a terrific footballer. Grimman Lee. He's got to control the midfield, and Lockie White. You know, you want to see Lockie and Jack start in the midfield and do some damage early with Miller. Is Bishop going to start on the field, or is he going to be a little bit sly and maybe start off it or sit in the pocket or something like that? Cardiff, Tahi Brain's had a terrific season. Boofler, the big Boof, Tommy Lashley. It's great to see Sam Howard back in the lineup after a bit of an injury concern. They've Justin Dorr and Billy Towers. They've just got stars. There are so many terrific players across the field. Key player for Cardiff tomorrow, I reckon, is Braden Hawkins, a bit of an unsung hero in the team. And I reckon if he gets first use out of the middle, they're going to be dangerous, Cardiff. It's just going to be a terrific battle. The games between them this year haven't been, the biggest margin of them between them during the year has been 14 points to Terrigal. There was a 2-pointer and a 6-pointer. If Cardiff lose tomorrow, they're the first side since 2012 to finish minor premiers and not make the grand final. It'll be I think Newcastle City were the last one to do that.
Since when?
Since 2012. They finished top of the league and missed out on a grand final. They'll be the first team to do it. Terrigal Avoca, 12 grand finals in a row if they win tomorrow, and it'll be the 5th Terrigal City showdown in 6 years, which, just highlights the dominance. I've thought about this all day. I've had a big week at work, and some of my time in the office today wasn't always about the office, but just don't tell my boss. But Terrigal Avoca, I think, would have had the absolute daylight scared out of them last week, and Bishop would have replayed the game to the boys during the week to fire them up. I think they've got a bit of history to chase. I think they've got a reputation to uphold. And I think tomorrow, Terrigal Avoca will win by about 5 or 6 points. They're going to do it. Sorry, Cardiff fans. I seriously hope you prove me wrong, because I think you're terrific. And Danny Priest for mine with Nathan Harkness are the 2 coaches of the year. But Terrigal Avoca will win, and I think they're going to win it based on what Corey very rightly says, his reputation. I think they'll get out to a great start. The key to it tomorrow for Terrigal is they need to get out to the same fast start they got out to on Saturday last week. If they do that, they'll beat Cardiff. If Cardiff match them in the first half, Cardiff will win. They'll overrun them. So that's the key for me. Terrigal get out to the fast start they did last week. Cardiff won't catch them. Cardiff keep up, they'll win. But I think Terrigal will do it by just the barest of margins.
And no Jack Pratt named for the Hawks either. I don't know what that
was
does
the other thing I was going to say.
I don't know whether he's going to be a last-minute insertion into that team or not, but he's not on the team sheets now. So
maybe they've forgotten it. Maybe they forgot to put him in the team just as a bit of psychology. But something tells me he's in that side, unless there's something wrong with him. But look, good luck to both teams tomorrow. What a preliminary final! It's going to be just a cracking series, and I think it'll be a wonderful thing. Shout out to the Wyong boys. They're going for their first grand final in plate since 2014 and their 4th overall. And if they win tomorrow, the form line says they'll go all the way because they've won every grand final they've played in.
Wow, that's a good stat.
I reckon they'll do it.
There you go. Thank you, Ash. My thoughts on that Cardiff Terrigal game. Listen, I am, part of me wants Cardiff to win to get a new team in the grand final. As you said, 5 of the last 6 have been City Panthers. I'd love to see Cardiff up there. I'm got the words of Nathan Harkness ringing in my ears, which as he left the ground on Saturday, he said, "We just played against this year's Premier." I think Nathan knows his footy pretty well, as we've seen this year. He reckons he's played against the Premier, which was Terrigal Avoca last Saturday. So I'm going to tip the Panthers.
Do you know what I say to counteract that? And I sound like I'm being a stick in the mud for Terrigal. Is Nath also nearly beat the team within a half under pressure with the side that didn't, barely put up a whimper for the first half. They almost came back and knocked them off. And that says to me that they're not quite invincible than what they think. There's vulnerabilities that were very clear in that, and Cardiff aren't as blown away by their reputation as they were last year and the year before, as what Warners Bay were coming into their first final. So they're a little more prepared, and they've got a very fast rebounding style of football that, if they get that cranking and they push it through to the end, it can expose those vulnerabilities.
Well, you know what, Chop? There's only one way to find out, and that is 3:00 tomorrow afternoon. Get yourself to Max McMahon. If you can't get yourself to Max McMahon, get yourself on bartv.com.au/AFL, because it is all happening live free and in high definition on Bar TV, of course. We'll be there. I'm excited. I've got to go get some beauty sleep ready for the big day. Gentlemen, thank you again, as always.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. It's been a great night.
Yeah, it's been good. I hope I'm feeling a bit better tomorrow, because I don't like being able to not talk non-stop and I don't like not being able to finish what I have to say due to coughing. So let's get on. I'll try and sort this out by tomorrow.
And here's a challenge for you, Chop. I love the double Cobras up in the commentary box last week. I want to see another goal celebration from you in the commentary box.
Love them.
If you're at the ground tomorrow, keep one eye on where we'll be. You might see Chop do something special up there in the box too.
Been working on something for you, especially Shane, actually. So we're going to make sure we get this goal celebration thing into stratosphere next year. So I think there's mileage in this for sure.
Fellas, bit of late mail for you. Jack Pratt's not playing tomorrow.
There you go.
Talk about it tomorrow afternoon, fellas.
Injured or not selected?
I'll talk to you about it tomorrow, fellas.
Oh, did he not get selected?
Let's just say he may not be able to be selected.
Sounds like no comment.
Right. Well, there you go. Wow, how about that?
Well, tune in tomorrow afternoon. You'll hear all that and more. Bar TV. Thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure as always. Gentlemen, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Can't wait till tomorrow, boys. Thank you.
Have a good evening, boys. Tell us when we're